off the coast of the Gulf of Oman, just after sunrise. A 900-foot container ship holds its course, while a guided missile destroyer closes in. Its targeting systems already calculating impact points down to the meter. If the ship is not stopped, it disappears into a maritime corridor that carries nearly 1/5 of the world's oil supply every day. If it is stopped by force, the interception itself becomes a trigger that can redraw the rules of engagement across an entire region. Between them, a gap of less than a kilometer shrinks second by second, and on the bridge of the warship, the order to fire hangs in the air while the black-hulled vessel named Toska continues forward, engines steady, no sign yet of slowing. Before we dive in, comment where you are watching from and click subscribe. This moment is not just about a ship. It is about a system under stress. The Strait of Hormuz and the surrounding waters are not empty ocean. They are a choke point through which around 20% of global energy supply passes, measured not in barrels alone, but in hours of electricity, kilometers of transport, and the cost of keeping entire cities running. Reuters. Every decision here is amplified. A single interception becomes a signal. A signal becomes a response. And one irreversible moment sits at the center of it all. The instant a weapon is fired at a civilian-flagged vessel, the line between enforcement and escalation is crossed. It cannot be reversed. It can only unfold. If you look at the Toska, you will notice its scale first. Nearly 270 meters long, stacked with standardized containers, each one part of a global system designed for efficiency, not confrontation. A container ship like this moves at a steady cruising speed, typically around 15 to 20 knots. That is roughly 30 to 37 kilometers per hour. Slow compared to aircraft, fast compared to its own ability to stop. Once in motion, it carries inertia measured in thousands of tons. Stopping is not a command. It is a process. Now look at the USS Spruance, a guided missile destroyer. Faster, more maneuverable, built for engagement. If the cargo ship is a freight train, the destroyer is a precision vehicle. It can accelerate, pivot, and position itself within minutes. This difference is not just technical. It defines control. One vessel reacts. The other dictates. At the initial contact, warnings are transmitted. Maritime radio frequencies carry a simple instruction. Alter course. Prepare for inspection. The signal travels instantly. The response does not. On the Toska, recognition takes time. Interpretation takes longer. Decision-making longer still. Seconds pass. In civilian navigation, seconds are negligible. In military operations, seconds accumulate into risk. If you look at the radar screens aboard the destroyer, you will notice constant motion. Sweeping arcs, returning signals, calculating vectors. Radar does not see ships as objects. It sees them as data. Position, speed, direction. Every update refines a prediction, where the ship will be in 10 seconds, in 30, in 1 minute. By the time a human sees the vessel with their eyes, the system has already projected its future path. At close range, visual confirmation replaces abstraction. The Toska becomes real. Steel hull, container stacks, bridge windows reflecting sunlight, no deviation in heading, no reduction in speed. This is the point where options narrow. If you look at the water between the vessels, you will notice turbulence increasing. Two large bodies displacing water create pressure zones. These zones interact. They can pull ships together or push them apart. Control is no longer just about direction. It is about fluid dynamics. Small adjustments in rudder angle translate into meters of separation. Warnings escalate. According to reports, the vessel ignored repeated instructions to stop. The Guardian II. The next step is built into the rules of engagement. Disable the ship, not destroy. Disable. At that moment, the distinction matters. A disabling shot targets the engine room. The goal is to remove propulsion without causing catastrophic structural damage. It is the difference between stopping a car by cutting its engine and destroying it entirely. Precision becomes critical. The order is given. A projectile is fired. It travels faster than sound, covering the distance in seconds. Impact is immediate. Metal is breached. Systems fail. Inside the Toska, propulsion drops. The ship that could not stop now has no choice but to drift. If you look at the engine room after impact, you will notice the smallest detail with the largest consequence. A breach in the hull near the propulsion system. Heat, pressure, and mechanical failure cascade outward. The ship's movement slows not gradually, but abruptly. Control is lost. At this point, the boarding phase begins. Small boats deploy from the destroyer. Fast, agile, carrying personnel trained for confined, unpredictable environments. Boarding a vessel at sea is like entering a moving structure where every compartment is unknown. Every corridor is a variable. Every door is a decision point. The teams ascend. Ladders hook onto steel. Hands grip, boots step. Weight transfers from water to hull. Within minutes, control shifts. The Toska is no longer operating independently. It is under external command. The Washington Post. 3. This is the mechanical end of the interception. But it is the operational beginning of something else. If you look beyond the immediate scene, you will notice a network reacting. Communications relay the event across command structures. Data moves faster than ships. Within minutes, confirmation spreads. A vessel has been seized. A blockade has been enforced. The blockade itself is not symbolic. It is physical. Initiated days earlier, it applies to ships entering and leaving Iranian ports. It is enforced by warships, aircraft, and surveillance systems. Olators 4. It costs hundreds of millions of dollars per day in lost revenue. Wikipedia 5. It constrains movement. It pressures decisions. From one perspective, the Toska attempted to bypass that system. From another, it became an example of enforcement. The interpretation diverges. The mechanics do not. If you look at the timeline after the seizure, you will notice how quickly response becomes action. Iranian sources describe the event not as enforcement, but as aggression. The framing shifts. And with it, the response threshold lowers. Drone systems enter the equation. Unmanned aerial vehicles, designed for range, precision, and expendability. Think of them as guided projectiles with wings. Once launched, they follow programmed routes, adjusting only within predefined parameters. Reports indicate that Iranian forces launched drone strikes, targeting U.S. military vessels in the region. Following the seizure, Chosunbiz 6, the sequence is direct. Interception, confirmation, retaliation. If you look at a drone's flight profile, you will notice its efficiency: low altitude, moderate speed, reduced radar signature. Unlike larger aircraft, drones present smaller targets. Detection becomes more difficult. Interception becomes more time-sensitive. On U.S. vessels, defensive systems activate. Radar shifts from tracking large objects to identifying small, fast-moving signatures. The difference is like spotting a bird versus spotting a jet. Both move. One is harder to distinguish. If you look at the engagement process, you will notice layers: detection, identification, tracking, interception. Each layer depends on the one before it. If detection is delayed, identification compresses. If identification is uncertain, interception hesitates. Time compresses appear. Distances shrink. Speeds remain constant. Interceptors launch. Missiles accelerate, guided by radar data. Impact calculations occur in milliseconds. The result is binary, hit or miss. Some drones are intercepted. Others approach closer. The system holds. But the margin narrows. If you look at the broader maritime environment, you will notice civilian vessels still present. Tankers, cargo ships. Crews operating under commercial schedules now exist within a military engagement zone. Their risk is not theoretical, it is immediate. The irony is structural. A system designed for global trade becomes the stage for localized conflict. Standardized containers, designed for efficiency, sit motionless on a ship disabled by precision fire. Advanced weapon systems, designed for deterrence, engage small, relatively inexpensive drones. Cost contrasts become visible. A multi-million-dollar interceptor meets a drone that costs a fraction of that. The exchange is not balanced economically. It is balanced operationally. If you look at the sequence as a whole, you will notice how each step leads to the next without pause. A blockade leads to an attempted transit. An attempted transit leads to interception. Interception leads to seizure. Seizure leads to retaliation. Retaliation leads to defense. No single step exists in isolation. By the end of the engagement window, the immediate threats are contained. The Toska remains under U.S. control. The drones that reached engagement range have been intercepted or neutralized. The vessels remain afloat. But the cost is not measured in damage alone. If you return to the moment in the hook, the gap between the destroyer and the cargo ship, the decision to fire, the irreversible threshold, you will see it completed. The shot was taken. The ship was stopped. The sequence unfolded exactly as the system was designed to execute. And across a waterway that moves 1/5 of the world's energy every day, a single disabled engine room turned a shipping lane into a battlefield measured in seconds.